Have you ever felt it? The sickening and disorienting sensation of having done everything right, only to watch it all go horribly wrong. You were honest, and you were betrayed. You were fair, and you were exploited. You were kind, and your kindness was mistaken for weakness and met with contempt. You have played by the rules of our modern, enlightened world, a world that supposedly values collaboration, authenticity, and win-win solutions, only to find yourself outmaneuvered, undermined, and ultimately defeated by those who seem to be playing a different, darker, and far more effective game. You look at the world around you, at the landscape of power in the 21st century, in the corporate boardroom, in the political arena, in the brutal and unforgiving coliseum of social media, and you see a chilling and undeniable pattern. The people who rise, the people who win, the people who seem to hold all the cards, are so often not the virtuous, but the ruthless. And you, the person who has clung to the comforting but naive virtues of a bygone era, are left in a state of profound and humiliating impotence. You are left with a question that feels like a betrayal of everything you have ever been taught to believe. What if the rules I have been playing by are a lie? This is one of the most dangerous and uncomfortable questions a modern person can ask. And it is a question that our culture, with its optimistic and deeply sentimental morality, is desperate to avoid. But there was one thinker in the history of the West who did not just ask this question, but who answered it with a cold, unflinching, and terrifying clarity. Niccolò Machiavelli. For 500 years, his name has been synonymous with evil, with tyranny, with the dark arts of cynical manipulation. We have turned him into a monster because we cannot bear the terrible and liberating truth of his central, hidden lesson that the world of power operates by a set of brutal and unchanging laws, and that to remain ignorant of these laws is to choose to be a victim. What would Machiavelli say if he were alive today? He would look at our modern world with all its technological marvels and its progressive pieties, and he would laugh. He would see that the game has not changed, only the stage. He would see that the human heart, in all its ambitious, fearful, and self-interested glory, is exactly the same. And he would see a world that is more ripe for the picking, more full of naive and unsuspecting sheep than he could ever have possibly imagined. To read Machiavelli today is not to engage in a dry academic exercise. It is to take the red pill. It is to awaken from the sentimental dream of our age and to see the world and the human soul as it truly is. 1. Why people respect strength but exploit kindness. Have you ever wondered why your kindness so often seems to backfire? You offer a helping hand, and it is taken for granted. You show compassion, and it is met with contempt. You give an inch, and a mile is taken. You have been taught by your entire culture that kindness is a form of strength, that it is a virtue that will be rewarded with loyalty, with gratitude, and with respect. And yet, your own lived experience has been a long and painful lesson to the contrary. You have discovered, with a quiet and growing sense of bitterness, that your kindness is not a magnet for respect. It is a magnet for exploitation. You have become the reliable resource, the emotional dumping ground, the person who can always be counted on, and who is, in the final analysis, almost never truly valued. You have likely looked at this strange and painful dynamic with a sense of profound and frustrating confusion. You have told yourself that you are just dealing with bad people, that you have been unlucky. But what if the problem is not the people you are dealing with? What if the problem is a fundamental and unchanging law of human nature? A law that you have been taught to ignore at your own peril. This is the first and most foundational of all of Niccolò Machiavelli's terrible and liberating truths. For Machiavelli, the world of power, the world of human interaction, is not a moral drama. It is a jungle. And in this jungle, there are two and only two fundamental forces: strength and weakness. Kindness, in and of itself, is not a form of strength. In the eyes of the vast, immoral, and deeply opportunistic machinery of human nature, your unreciprocated and unconditional kindness is almost always perceived as a form of weakness. And weakness, in the jungle, is not a quality to be respected. It is a vulnerability to be exploited. To understand this, you must first have the immense courage to look at human nature not as you wish it were, but as Machiavelli saw it, as it is. He saw that human beings are not, for the most part, grateful, loyal, or virtuous creatures. They are, he wrote with a chilling and unforgettable clarity, ungrateful, fickle, liars and deceivers, avoiders of danger, greedy for profit. They are driven not by a noble sense of morality, but by a raw and relentless self-interest. In this world, the person who operates from a place of pure, unadulterated kindness is a sheep who has willingly wandered into a pack of wolves. The sheep's worldview is one of mutual aid, of gentleness, of a belief in the inherent goodness of others. The wolf's worldview is one of pure, predatory opportunism. When the wolf encounters the sheep's kindness, it does not see a virtue to be admired. It sees an opening. It sees a resource that can be taken with little to no cost. Your kindness, your willingness to give without demanding anything in return, is, to the wolf, a sign that you are a fool, a mark, a person who does not understand the fundamental and brutal laws of the game. Strength, on the other hand, is a language that the wolf understands perfectly. Strength, the capacity to inflict a cost, to set a boundary, to say no, with an unshakable and terrifying. Finality is a form of reality that the self-interested nature of the other person is forced to respect. You do not respect the sheep that you are about to eat. You respect the other wolf who is strong enough to steal your kill or to make you its own. This is the great and tragic paradox of human interaction. We all, on a conscious level, praise and admire the virtue of kindness. But on a deep, instinctual, and unconscious level, we are animals of power. And we are constantly, and almost entirely unconsciously, assessing the power dynamics of every situation we are in. The person who is only kind, who has no capacity for a credible and terrifying show of strength, is a person who is broadcasting a signal of low power. And a low power signal, in the immoral calculus of the human jungle, is an invitation to be dominated, to be used, and to be, in the end, devoured. The path to power, the path to earning genuine and lasting respect, is not, as Machiavelli so brutally and so brilliantly taught us, the path of being a good person. It is the path of becoming a whole person. It is the path of the prince, a person who has learned to be both the man and the beast, the person who has the capacity for both a profound and generous kindness and a sudden, terrifying, and absolutely convincing cruelty. It is the person who understands that true kindness, the kindness that is respected, is not a form of weakness. It is a form of power. It is a gift that is given not from a place of needy supplication, but from a place of sovereign and unshakable strength. And it is a gift that can and will be instantly withdrawn at the first sign of its being taken for granted. This is the great and uncomfortable secret of human nature. You can be a sheep and you can be loved for a little while, and then you will be eaten. Or you can be a wolf and you can be feared, and you can be, in the end, the only one who is truly and lastingly respected. 2. The harsh truth about why good people lose. The sickening and disorienting sensation of having done everything right only to watch it all go horribly wrong. You were honest and you were betrayed. You were fair and you were exploited. You were compassionate and your compassion was mistaken for weakness and met with contempt. You have played by the rules of the good person, the moral, ethical, and decent human being, only to find yourself outmaneuvered, undermined, and ultimately defeated by those who operate by a different, darker, and seemingly more effective set of rules. You are left in a state of profound and bitter confusion. You look at the world, at the landscape of power in your own life, in your career. in your relationships, in the grand theater of politics, and you see a chilling and undeniable pattern. The people who rise, the people who win, the people who seem to hold all the cards, are so often not the good, but the ruthless. And you, the good person, are left on the sidelines, clutching your useless virtues, feeling a toxic mixture of self-righteousness and profound, humiliating impotence. You are left with a question that feels like a betrayal of everything you have ever been taught to believe. What if being good is a losing strategy? This is one of the most dangerous and uncomfortable questions a human being can ask. And it is a question that our modern culture, with its optimistic and deeply sentimental morality, is desperate to avoid. We are fed a constant diet of comforting lies, that good always triumphs in the end, that cheaters never prosper, that the arc of the moral universe bends toward justice. But what if this is all a fairy tale, a story we tell our children and ourselves to mask a far more brutal and terrifying reality? There was one thinker in the history of the West who had the immense and terrible courage to look this reality squarely in the face, to dissect it with the cold, unflinching precision of a surgeon, and to write down what he found without any moralistic sugarcoating. His name was Niccolo Machiavelli, and for 500 years his name has been synonymous with evil, with tyranny, with the dark arts of cynical manipulation. We have turned him into a monster because we cannot bear the terrible and liberating truth of his central hidden lesson. And that lesson is this: in the real world, the world of power, the world as it is rather than as we wish it to be, good people do not lose because they are unlucky. They lose because they are good. Their very goodness is the instrument of their own destruction. To understand this terrifying lesson, you must first grasp Machiavelli's fundamental and world-shattering distinction between two entirely different realms of existence. There is the world of private morality, the world of the church, of the family, of personal relationships between equals. In this world, the Christian virtues of humility, of compassion, of honesty, of turning the other cheek may be beautiful and even effective. This is the world as we wish it were. But there is another world, a world that operates by a completely different and far more brutal set of laws. This is the world of power. It is the world of politics, of business, of war, of any arena where human beings are competing for scarce resources, for status, for survival. This is the world as it is. It is not a moral drama. It is a jungle. It is a realm governed not by what is right, but by what is effective. It is a realm of necessity, of force, of deception. The great and tragic error of the good person is that they do not recognize this distinction. They are a naive universalist. They believe that the rules of private morality apply everywhere, at all times. They walk into the brutal, chaotic, and amoral arena of power, armed with nothing but the gentle virtues of the monastery. They are, in Machiavelli's devastatingly clear-eyed view, a sheep who has willingly wandered into a pack of wolves, expecting them to play by the rules of the pasture. The outcome is not just predictable, it is inevitable. They will be devoured. Why? Because the good person is playing a game of profound and fatal psychological asymmetry. They are bound by 1,000 internal rules of conscience. They must be honest, they must be fair, they must be compassionate. Their opponent, the wolf, is bound by only one rule: to win. The good person enters a negotiation with a genuine desire to find a win-win solution. The wolf enters the negotiation with a single-minded desire to win and to see the other person lose. The good person reveals their true position, believing in the virtue of transparency. The wolf conceals its true position, understanding that information is power. The good person offers trust, believing it will be reciprocated. The wolf sees trust as a weakness to be exploited. In this contest, the good person's virtues are not just useless. They are liabilities. Their honesty is a tactical disadvantage. Their fairness is a strategic blunder. Their compassion is a fatal flaw. They are a chess player who has voluntarily given up their queen, their rooks and their bishops, all for the sake of a beautiful and ultimately suicidal moral principle. Their defeat is not an accident. It is a certainty, a mathematical necessity. The harsh truth, as Machiavelli saw it, is that the world of power is not a place for saints. It is a place for warriors. And a warrior cannot afford the luxury of a pure and unsullied conscience. A warrior must be willing to be not good. They must be willing to be a lion, to use force, to inspire fear. And they must be willing to be a fox, to be cunning, to be deceptive, to meet the traps of the world with traps of their own. The good person who is unwilling to embrace their own inner beast, their own shadow, is not a moral hero. They are an irresponsible and ultimately quite useless actor in the great and terrible drama of the world. They have chosen the purity of their own soul over the messy and often morally compromising work of actually achieving a good end. And in this choice, they have guaranteed their own irrelevance and the victory of the very forces they claim to despise. 4. The psychology of power. Why people pretend to be loyal but never are. Have you ever been betrayed? Not by an open and declared enemy, but by a friend, a colleague, a trusted ally, a person who swore their undying loyalty to you. It is one of the most painful and disorienting of all human experiences. You are left not just with the material loss of the betrayal itself, but with a profound and soul-crushing sense of psychological vertigo. The person you thought you knew, the relationship you thought you had, the very reality you thought you were living in, all of it, is revealed to have been a lie, a performance, a carefully constructed and deeply cynical illusion. You are left with a quiet and deeply paranoid question. Can I ever truly trust anyone again? The answer, according to the cold, unflinching, and terrifyingly clear-eyed psychology of Niccolò Machiavelli, is simple. No. For Machiavelli, the belief in the genuine and lasting loyalty of other human beings is the most dangerous and the most naive of all human illusions. It is the fatal flaw of the amateur, the emotional blind spot that will, with an almost mathematical certainty, lead to their eventual ruin. The master of power, the prince, understands a far more brutal and far more useful truth. Loyalty is not a matter of the heart. It is a matter of the balance sheet. It is a temporary and conditional alignment of self-interest. And the moment that alignment shifts, the loyalty will, without a moment's hesitation, evaporate like the morning mist. To understand this dark insight, you must once again have the immense courage to look at human nature not as you wish it were, but as Machiavelli saw it, as it is. He saw that human beings are not, for the most part, noble, honorable, or loyal creatures. They are first and foremost creatures of a relentless and insatiable self-interest. They are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. Their primary motivation in all things is the pursuit of their own advantage and the avoidance of their own pain. The loyalty that they show to you is not a sign of their love or their respect for you. It is a strategic calculation. They are loyal to you because you are, at this present moment, the most effective vehicle for the advancement of their own interests. You are the person who can give them the job, the money, the status, the protection that they crave. Your relationship is not a bond of the soul. It is a transaction. And like any transaction, it is only valid as long as both parties are getting what they want. The moment you cease to be useful to them, the moment a more powerful and more promising patron appears on the horizon, the moment that their loyalty to you comes into conflict with their own primal and non-negotiable self-interest, they will betray you. This is not a sign of their own personal evil. It is, for Machiavelli, a simple and predictable law of human nature, as certain and as unavoidable as the law of gravity. To expect otherwise is not a sign of your own virtuous and trusting nature. It is a sign of your own profound and deeply dangerous foolishness. The prince, a master of power, understands this. And so, they do not build their power on the fragile and shifting sands of other people's loyalty. They build it on the unshakable and unforgiving bedrock of their own self-sufficient strength. They do not seek to be loved, they seek to be needed. They understand that the only true and reliable form of loyalty is the loyalty of the person, who knows that their own survival and their own prosperity are inextricably linked to yours. This is the great and secret art of all successful leadership. The prince is a master at weaving a complex and intricate web of mutual self-interest. He makes sure that his key lieutenants are more powerful with him than they could ever be against him. He makes sure that to betray him is not just an act of disloyalty, it is an act of profound and catastrophic self-destruction. He has not won their hearts, he has captured their wills. And what of the performance of loyalty? The prince is not a fool. He enjoys the elaborate and often quite beautiful theater of other people's flattery, of their protestations of undying devotion. But he is never, ever, for a single solitary moment, deceived by it. He is the director of the play, not a member of the audience. He knows that the words of men are a cheap and infinitely malleable currency. He judges a man not by what he says, but by what he does, and by what his interests compel him to do. This is a cold, and often quite lonely, way to see the world. It is a world without the warm and comforting illusion of a true and selfless friendship, of an unconditional and unwavering loyalty. But it is, for Machiavelli, the only way to see the world that will not, in the end, lead to your own tragic and entirely predictable crucifixion. The harsh truth is this: people will pretend to be loyal because it is in their interest to do so, and they will betray you the moment it is in their interest to do so. To expect anything else is to be a child living in a world of fairy tales, and the world of power is not a fairy tale. It is a jungle, and in the jungle, the only creature you can ever truly and completely trust is yourself. Five. Why? Trust is the most dangerous thing you can give. It is one of the most sacred and unquestioned pieties of our modern therapeutic culture. We are taught that to be a good and healthy human being is to be a trusting one, to be open, to be vulnerable, to offer the gift of your own unguarded heart to the world in the hopeful and optimistic belief that it will be handled with care. To be suspicious, to be guarded, to be anything less than radically and unconditionally trusting is to be seen as cynical, as damaged, as a person who is incapable of true intimacy. But what if this is a lie? A beautiful, seductive, and ultimately quite dangerous lie. What if trust is not the foundation of all relationships, but is, in fact, the single most powerful and most effective weapon that can be used against you? This is the radical and deeply uncomfortable teaching of the great philosopher of power, Niccolo Machiavelli. For Machiavelli, the person who gives their trust away freely and indiscriminately is not a virtuous and loving soul. They are a fool. They are a person who has voluntarily and enthusiastically handed the keys to their own kingdom over to a potential enemy. In the brutal and unforgiving world of power, trust is not a virtue. It is a strategic and often fatal blunder. To understand this, you must once again have the immense courage to look at human nature not as you wish it were, but as Machiavelli saw it, as it is. He saw that human beings are not, for the most part, trustworthy, honorable, or virtuous creatures. They are first and foremost creatures of a relentless and insatiable self-interest. They are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. Their primary motivation in all things is the pursuit of their own advantage and the avoidance of their own pain. In this world, the act of giving your trust to another person is an act of profound and almost insane vulnerability. It is to make a bet against all the available evidence of human history that this one single person will be the miraculous exception to the fundamental and unchanging laws of their own nature. It is to believe that their loyalty to you will be stronger than their love for themselves. And this, for Machiavelli, is a bet that you will, with an almost mathematical certainty, eventually lose. The prince, the master of power, understands this. And so, they do not operate from a place of trust. They operate from a place of a profound and deeply strategic distrust. This is not a paranoid and emotional state of being. It is a cold, rational, and deeply pragmatic one. The prince does not trust in the goodness of men. They trust in their own, clear-eyed understanding of their self-interest. When the prince forms an alliance, it is not because he trusts the character of his new ally. It is because he has done a cold and ruthless calculation, and he has concluded that it is, at this present moment, in his ally's own manifest self-interest to cooperate. He has not won their heart. He has captured their will by aligning his own goals with their own, selfish ones. And he knows, with an absolute and unwavering certainty, that the moment this alignment of interests ceases to exist, the alliance is over. This is the great and secret art of all successful statecraft, of all successful business, of all successful navigation of the treacherous waters of human affairs. You must learn to see the world not as a network of friendships, but as a network of interests. You must learn to judge a person not by the sincerity of their promises, but by the cold and hard logic of their own personal and political calculus. The prince is a master of the appearance of trust. He is warm, he is engaging, he is charismatic. He makes you feel as though you are his most trusted and most valued confidant. But in the cold and silent fortress of his own mind, he is always and forever watching. He is always assessing. He is always calculating. He is always asking the one essential and brutally pragmatic question: how will this person betray me? Not if, but how. This is a cold and often quite lonely way to see the world. It is a world without the warm and comforting illusion of a true and selfless friendship, of an unconditional and unwavering loyalty. But it is, for Machiavelli, the only way to see the world that will not, in the end, lead to your own tragic and entirely predictable crucifixion. The harsh truth is this: to give your trust is to give a weapon to another person, a weapon that they will, if the circumstances are right, almost certainly use against you. This does not mean that you must become a paranoid and isolated hermit. It means that you must become a wise and discerning realist. You must learn to be friendly, but not to have friends. You must learn to form alliances, but not to have allies. You must learn to use the beautiful and powerful illusion of trust as a strategic tool, all the while knowing that the only person you can ever truly and completely trust in this world is yourself. To do otherwise is not an act of love. It is an act of profound and ultimately quite unforgivable foolishness. Six, why most people fail at power, relationships, and leadership. You look at your leaders, your bosses, your so-called elites, and you are struck by a profound and often quite frustrating sense of their inadequacy. They make foolish decisions. They pursue short-sighted strategies. They seem to be utterly and completely blind to the obvious and predictable consequences of their own actions. You look at the landscape of human relationships, at the endless and tragic carousel of divorce, of betrayal, of quiet and desperate unhappiness, and you see the same baffling pattern of failure. You are surrounded by a world of people who are, for the most part, failing at the most important and most fundamental games of life. You have likely diagnosed this with the standard language of our time. They are unlucky. They are not smart enough. They are bad people. But what if the reason for their failure is not a deficit of intelligence or a deficit of morality, but a single, fundamental, and almost universal psychological error? What if most people fail at power at relationships, and at leadership because they are, quite simply, playing the wrong game. This is the radical and deeply illuminating insight of the great philosopher of power, Niccolo Machiavelli. For Machiavelli, the world is not one single unified reality. It is two. There is the world as we wish it were, a world of morality, of fairness, of Christian virtues. And there is the world as it is, a brutal and amoral jungle of competing interests and insatiable wills. The great and tragic trap that ensnares the vast majority of humanity is that they try to apply the rules of the first world to the realities of the second. They are, in a very real and tragic sense, bringing a book of prayers to a gunfight. And their failure is not just predictable, it is inevitable. To understand this trap, you must first understand the psychology of the good person, the person who has been raised on the sentimental and ultimately quite dangerous milk of conventional morality. The good person believes in honesty. They believe in fairness. They believe in compassion. They believe that if they are a good and virtuous person, they will be rewarded with success, with love, with a good and happy life. This is a beautiful and deeply naive worldview, and it works, for a time, in the sheltered and artificial world of the nursery, of the classroom, of the private and personal sphere. But the moment this person steps into the real world, the world of power, their virtues are transformed from assets into liabilities. Their honesty is exploited by the liar. Their fairness is taken advantage of by the ruthless. Their compassion is seen as a weakness by the predator. They are a sheep, and they have wandered into a world that is, and always has been, run by wolves. This is the great and tragic trap. The good person, faced with the brutal and unfair realities of the world, does not question their own, flawed and naive, worldview. They double down on it. They become more righteous, more moralistic, more convinced of their own virtuous superiority. They see their own repeated failures, not as a sign that their strategy is wrong, but as a sign that the world is evil. They become the bitter and resentful martyr, the person who is perpetually and self-righteously losing, all the while congratulating themselves on their own beautiful and unsullied soul. The master of power, the prince, is the person who has seen this trap and has had the immense and terrifying courage to step outside of it. The prince is a realist. They have stripped away every last shred of sentimentality, of idealism, of wishful thinking, and they have had the immense courage to look at human nature and at the world in all its dark, complex, and terrifying glory. The prince understands that the world of power is not a moral drama. It is a game of physics. It is a game of forces, of interests, of causes and effects. And they have dedicated their entire mind to the cold and deeply pragmatic study of these forces. They have understood that in this world, the question is not what is right. It is what is effective. This is why they succeed. They are not smarter than you. They are not, in some fundamental way, a better person. They are simply playing a different and far more reality-based game. While you are trying to be good, they are trying to be effective. While you are trying to save your own soul, they are trying to win. This is a cold, and often quite lonely, way to see the world. It is a world without the warm and comforting illusion of a just and moral universe. But it is, for Machiavelli, the only way to see the world that will not, in the end, lead to your own tragic and entirely predictable ruin. The great and terrible secret of life is this: the world is not a fairy tale, and to insist on living as if it is not a sign of your own noble and virtuous character. It is a sign of your own profound and ultimately quite unforgivable foolishness. 7. The dark rules people secretly follow appear good. Do what you must. You look at the world of success, of power, of social climbing, and you see a strange and deeply hypocritical game being played. On the surface, everyone is espousing the virtues of honesty, of integrity, of teamwork, of a gentle and collaborative spirit. The public language is a language of light, of morality, of a shared and beautiful idealism. And yet, beneath this shining surface, you sense the operation of a different and far darker set of rules. You see the ruthless ambition, the subtle manipulations, the quiet betrayals, the cold and calculating self-interest. You are living in a world that preaches the morality of the saint, but which practices in secret the morality of the assassin. You have likely looked at this strange and duplicitous world with a sense of profound and often quite righteous confusion. You have tried to be a person of integrity, to make your actions align with your words. And you have found yourself, time and time again, at a profound and seemingly insurmountable disadvantage. You are an honest player in a game that is, for the most part, completely and utterly rigged. You are left with a quiet and deeply disturbing question. Am I a fool for trying to be good? The answer, according to the cold, unflinching, and terrifyingly clear-eyed psychology of Niccolò Machiavelli, is yes. For Machiavelli, the person who is genuinely, and at all times, a good person in the conventional Christian sense, is not just a fool. They are a person who is destined for certain ruin. The master of power, the prince, understands a far more complex, a far more effective, and a far more psychologically astute rule. A rule that is the great and unspoken secret of all successful human beings. And the rule is this: you must, at all times, appear to be good. But you must, in the quiet and secret chambers of your own will, be prepared to do what you must. To understand this dark rule, you must once again have the immense courage to look at human nature not as you wish it were, but as Machiavelli saw it, as it is. He saw that human beings are not, for the most part, deep, discerning, and rational creatures. They are, he wrote, simple and so subject to present necessities, that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. The masses, the vulgar, do not judge you by who you are, but by who you appear to be. They are a creature of the surface. They are seduced by the spectacle, by the performance of virtue. The prince, the master of power, understands this. And so, they do not waste their time and their energy on the difficult, and ultimately quite useless, project of actually being a good person. They focus their immense and considerable talents on a far more important and far more effective project, the project of appearing to be one. They understand that a reputation for being merciful, for being faithful, for being humane, for being religious, for being upright, is an immense and powerful asset in the world of power. It wins you the love of the people. It disarms your enemies. It creates a beautiful and impenetrable shield of public goodwill. The master of power is, therefore, a master of the mask. They are a brilliant and highly skilled actor. They know how to weep at a funeral, how to kiss a baby, how to deliver a passionate and deeply moving speech about their own unwavering commitment to the public good. They are, in a very real sense, the ultimate hypocrite. But their hypocrisy is not a moral failing. It is a strategic and highly effective tool. For the prince understands a deeper and more terrible truth. They understand that while the appearance of virtue is a powerful asset, the actual and consistent practice of it is a fatal liability. The world of power is a brutal and unforgiving jungle. And in this jungle, there will be times when you must be cruel to be kind, when you must lie to protect your people, when you must betray an ally to ensure your own survival. The good person, the person who is a slave to their own, rigid and absolute, moral principles, cannot make these difficult and necessary choices. They would rather see their kingdom burn than to dirty their own, beautiful and unsullied, hands. The prince is not a slave to this kind of moral vanity. Their ultimate loyalty is not to a set of abstract moral principles. It is to the preservation and the glory of their own power. And they are willing to do whatever it takes, to use whatever means are necessary to achieve this end. They are the shepherd who will, without a moment's hesitation, sacrifice a single sick lamb to save the entire flock. And they will do so all the while with a look of profound and deeply convincing compassion on their face. This is the great and terrible secret that separates the winners from the losers in the game of life. The loser is the person who is trying to be good. The winner is the person who has understood that it is only necessary to seem good. To live by this rule is to enter into a world of profound and often quite lonely psychological complexity. It is to live a life of perpetual and conscious performance. It is to be forever a stranger to the simple and ultimately quite childish comforts of a clear conscience. But it is, for Machiavelli, the only path to a life of genuine and lasting power. It is the path of the one who has understood that in the theater of the world, the actor who plays the role of the saint is almost always in the end the one who is the true and absolute master of the game. 8. Why people fear losing more than they want to win. Have you ever wondered why our world is so full of fear? Not the dramatic, cinematic fear of the monster or the murderer, but a quieter, more pervasive, and more corrosive fear. The fear of the manager who is so terrified of making a mistake that they refuse to make any decision at all. The fear of the politician who is so afraid of losing the next election that they are willing to sacrifice any and all of their principles. The fear of the ordinary person who chooses to remain in a deadening but familiar job, in a loveless but stable relationship, simply because the prospect of the unknown, of the possibility of failure, is too terrifying to contemplate. We are a civilization that is not so much motivated by the joyful and expansive pursuit of victory as we are by the grim and constricting avoidance of defeat. You have likely been taught to see this as a form of prudence, of playing it safe. But what if it is, in fact, a profound and deeply ingrained psychological prison? What if our deep and instinctual aversion to loss is the single greatest obstacle to our own and our collective potential for greatness? This is one of the most subtle and most profoundly important of all Machiavelli's psychological insights. For Machiavelli understood, with a cold and unflinching clarity, that the human soul is not a symmetrical instrument. The pain of a loss is always, and without exception, more powerful than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. And the person who understands this, who knows how to use this fundamental asymmetry of the human heart, is a person who has been handed a secret and devastatingly effective key to all human motivation. To understand this principle, you must once again have the immense courage to look at human nature not as you wish it were, but as Machiavelli saw it, as it is. He saw that human beings are, first and foremost, creatures of possession. We are defined not by what we aspire to, but by what we have: our property, our status, our reputation, our comfortable habits. And our psychological relationship with these possessions is a profoundly irrational one. The pleasure we feel in acquiring a new possession is fleeting and superficial, but the pain we feel at the prospect of losing something we already have is a deep, primal, and often quite violent emotion. As Machiavelli wrote, a man will sooner forget the death of his own father than the loss of his patrimony. The prince, the master of power, understands this, and they use this understanding as the central and most important tool in their arsenal of control. The amateur leader tries to motivate their followers with the promise of future gains, with a beautiful and inspiring vision of the promised land. This is a weak and unreliable strategy. The master leader motivates them with the fear of a present loss. They do not say, "Follow me, and we will achieve a glorious new future." They say, "Follow me, or the enemy will come and take away everything you hold dear." This is the dark and secret engine of all successful political and social movements. They are not, for the most part, built on a foundation of hope. They are built on a foundation of a skillfully and relentlessly cultivated fear of loss. The enemy, the immigrant, the other political party, the rival nation, is not just an opponent. They are a direct and existential threat to your property, your way of life, your very identity. The leader who can successfully frame the conflict in these terms is a leader who can command an almost absolute and unquestioning loyalty. They have not just captured the minds of their followers. They have captured their most primal and most powerful instincts. This principle also explains the profound and often quite frustrating conservatism of all human institutions. The reason that large organizations are so resistant to change, so hostile to innovation, is not because they are stupid. It is because they are, quite rationally, more afraid of losing what they have than they are desirous of gaining what they do not. The potential rewards of a bold new strategy are always, in the psychological calculus of the institution, outweighed by the terrifying and potentially catastrophic risks of failure. And so, they choose the slow and comfortable death of stagnation over the risky and uncertain path of rebirth. The person who wishes to achieve anything of greatness, who wishes to be a force for change in the world, must understand this. You must understand that the greatest enemy you will face is not the active opposition of your rivals, but the passive and immensely powerful inertia of the status quo. You must become a master of the art of reframing. You must learn to present your new and radical idea not as a promise of a future gain, but as a necessary and urgent solution to a present and terrifying loss. You must convince people that the ship is not just sailing towards a beautiful new island. It is, in fact, sinking. This is a cold and often quite cynical way to see the world. It is a world that is driven not by the beautiful and expansive passions of hope and of love, but by the dark and constricting passions of fear and of greed. But it is, for Machiavelli, the only way to see the world that is effective. To believe that you can move men to greatness by appealing to their better nature is to be a poet, a dreamer, a saint. And in the brutal and unforgiving world of power, the saints are always, and without exception, the first to be crucified. 9. How people control others without being noticed, not in an overt and obvious way, not through a direct command or a threat of force, but in a far more subtle, a far more insidious, and a far more effective way. It is the feeling of being gently and almost imperceptibly guided towards a choice that you believe is your own, but that, on some deep and instinctual level, you know is not. It is the feeling of being a pawn in a game you do not understand, your moves being dictated by a player you cannot even see. You are a puppet, and the strings that are moving you are so fine, so delicate that they are, for all intents and purposes, invisible. You have likely dismissed this feeling as a form of paranoia. You have been taught by the very culture that is so masterfully controlling you that the only real form of power is the overt and obvious kind, the power of the law, of the gun, of the formal hierarchy. But what if this is a lie? What if the most powerful and the most effective form of control is the kind that is never, ever noticed? This is the radical and deeply uncomfortable teaching of the great philosopher of power, Niccolo Machiavelli. For Machiavelli, the master of power, the prince, is not the one who rules through the clumsy and inefficient use of brute force. The master is the one who has perfected the dark and beautiful art of necessary deception, the art of controlling the minds and the wills of others, all the while maintaining the powerful and deeply useful illusion of their own freedom. To understand this, you must once again have the immense courage to look at human nature not as you wish it were, but as Machiavelli saw it, as it is. He saw that human beings are not, for the most part, deep, discerning, and rational creatures. They are, he wrote, simple and so subject to present necessities that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. The masses are a creature of the surface. They are seduced by the spectacle, by the performance of virtue, by the comforting and emotionally satisfying illusion. They do not want the complex and often quite painful truth. They want a good story. The prince, the master of power, understands this. And so, They do not waste their time and their energy on the difficult, and ultimately quite useless, project of trying to lead through reason and transparency. They become a master storyteller, an artist of illusion, a weaver of magnificent and deeply convincing deceptions. This is not the clumsy and obvious deception of the common liar. It is a far more sophisticated and far more effective art. It is the art of framing. The master of power knows that the person who controls the frame of the conversation is the person who controls the outcome. They are a master at asking the questions that will lead you, as if by your own free and rational choice, to the conclusion that they have already predetermined. They do not tell you what to think. They skillfully and invisibly shape the very context in which you are able to think at all. It is the art of misdirection. The master of power is a master of the theatrical gesture, of the public spectacle. They know that the human mind is a creature of attention. And so, while you are watching the grand and dramatic performance, they are putting on with their right hand the passionate speech, the public act of charity, the manufactured war against a convenient enemy. Their left hand is, in the quiet and unnoticed darkness, moving the real pieces on the board. It is the art of the mask. The master of power is a brilliant and highly skilled actor. They have mastered the art of appearing to be all things to all people. To the religious, they are a man of God. To the secular, they are a man of reason. To the common people, they are a man of the people. They are a perfect and flawless mirror, reflecting back to each person the very virtues that that person most admires. They are not a person. They are a collection of carefully managed and strategically deployed appearances. And it is the art of the noble lie. The master of power understands that a society is not held together by a rational contract. It is held together by a shared and sacred myth. It is the myth of the nation's divine destiny, of the tribe's inherent goodness, of the leader's unwavering and selfless devotion to their people. These are all, from a cold and rational perspective, lies. But they are, for Machiavelli, necessary lies. They are the beautiful and life-giving illusions that inspire men to greatness, that bind them together, that make a civilization possible. The prince is the one who has the courage and the wisdom to not just tell these lies, but to believe in them, even as he knows that they are not true. This is a cold, and often quite lonely, way to see the world. It is a world without the warm and comforting illusion of a genuine and transparent human connection. But it is, for Machiavelli, the only way to see the world that is effective. To believe that you can lead people through the power of the unvarnished truth is to be a fool, a dreamer, a saint. And in the brutal and unforgiving world of power, the saints are always, and without exception, the first to be crucified. The master of power is the one who has understood the great and terrible secret of the human soul, that we do not want the truth. We want a better story. And the person who can give us that story is the person who will, in the end, be our king. 10. Why humans betray, lie, fear, and compete. You see the news, and it is a relentless and sickening parade of betrayal, of deception, of cruelty, of a seemingly endless and insatiable human appetite for conflict. You look at your own life, at the quiet and often not so quiet dramas of your own personal world, and you see the same tragic patterns playing out on a smaller scale. The lie, the betrayal, the fear, the competition, these are not aberrations. They are the very fabric of the human condition. You have likely been taught to see this as a problem, a sickness, a deviation from a natural and original state of goodness. You have been raised on the hopeful and deeply sentimental milk of the Enlightenment. The belief that human beings are, at their core, rational, cooperative, and good, and that all of this darkness is a result of a corrupting system, of a lack of education, of a simple and tragic misunderstanding. You have spent your life hoping, and perhaps even working, for a future in which we can finally, and for all time, overcome our own dark nature. But what if this is a lie? A beautiful, noble, and ultimately quite dangerous lie. What if the darkness is not the exception, but the rule? What if betrayal, lying, fear, and competition are not the symptoms of a sick society, but are, in fact, the natural, inevitable, and unchanging expressions of a creature that is, at its very core, a selfish, fearful, and power-seeking animal? This is the radical, the terrifying, and the profoundly liberating vision of the great and terrible philosopher, Niccolo Machiavelli. For Machiavelli, the great and defining error of all Western thought has been its profound and almost willful blindness to the true, and often quite ugly, nature of the human animal. He was not a moralist. He was a zoologist of the soul, and the report he brought back from the depths of the human jungle is a truth that we are still, 500 years later, desperately trying to deny. To understand Machiavelli's dark and unflinching vision, you must first understand his foundational premise, that a human being is a creature of the passions, not of reason. And the two great and ruling passions are greed and fear. We are, he wrote, insatiable in our desires. We are driven by a relentless and ultimately quite pathetic hunger for more wealth, more status, more power. And at the same time, we are driven by a profound and all-consuming fear of losing what we have. This is the great and tragic contradiction that lies at the heart of our being. We are a creature that is simultaneously, and at all times, an emperor and a coward. From this single brutal premise, all the rest of our dark behaviors flow with an inexorable and terrifying logic. Why do we lie? We lie because we are weak. We lie because we do not have the power to get what we want through direct and honest means. The lie is the weapon of the fox, the tool of the creature who must use its cunning to survive in a world of lions. To expect honesty from a creature that is driven by an insatiable greed and a profound fear is a form of madness. A man will be honest only as long as it is in his interest to be so. The moment that his honesty comes into conflict with his own selfish desires, he will lie. This is not a moral failing. It is a law of nature. Why do we betray? We betray for the very same reason. Loyalty, as we have seen, is not a matter of the heart. It is a matter of the balance sheet. A person is loyal to you only as long as you are the most effective vehicle for the satisfaction of their own greedy and fearful nature. The moment a better offer comes along, the moment that their loyalty to you becomes a liability, they will betray you. To be shocked by this is to be shocked that a river flows downhill. Why do we compete? We compete because we are creatures of an infinite desire, living in a world of finite resources. The very existence of another person who wants what we want is a threat. Our natural state is not one of peaceful and harmonious cooperation. It is one of a relentless and often quite brutal competition. The war of all against all, as Thomas Hobbes would later call it, is not a political theory. It is a psychological reality. We may enter into temporary and strategic alliances, but in the end, we are all, each and every one of us, at war with all the rest. And why are we so consumed by fear? We are afraid because we know, on a deep and instinctual level, that we are living in a jungle, that we are surrounded by other creatures who are just as greedy, just as deceptive, and just as ruthless as we are. Our fear is not a neurosis. It is a sane and accurate perception of the true nature of the human world. This is Machiavelli's great and terrible gift to us. He is not the devil who is tempting us to be evil. He is the physician who is forcing us to look at the disease that has been living within us all along. He is the man who has had the immense and terrible courage to turn on the lights in the dark and chaotic room of the human soul, and to show us the monsters that we have been so desperately pretending are not there. The choice is not whether or not we will be these creatures. We are these creatures. The only real choice we have is whether we will be the naive and self-deceiving victim of our own nature, or whether we will have the courage to become its conscious and ultimately its powerful master. Conclusion. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey into the dark and often quite treacherous landscapes of Machiavelli's thought, and we are left with a single stark and life-altering realization. The world we inhabit, the world of power, of human interaction, is not the world we have been taught to believe in. It is not a moral drama. It is not a fairy tale. It is a jungle. And in this jungle, the gentle and sentimental virtues that we have been taught to cherish are not just a weakness. They are a death sentence. The lessons of Machiavelli are not a comforting philosophy. They are a hammer. They are a set of brutally effective tools for the systematic and often quite painful demolition of our own most cherished and most dangerous illusions. He has shown us that kindness is exploited while strength is respected, that good people lose because their virtues are a tactical liability. He has revealed that fear is a more powerful motivator than love, that loyalty is a temporary alignment of interests, that trust is a weapon that will be used against you. He has explained that most people fail because they are playing the wrong game, that the true art of power is to appear good while being prepared to be otherwise. He has shown us that the fear of loss is our most potent driver, that the most effective control is the one that is never noticed, and that our entire, dark and chaotic nature flows from the simple and unchangeable truths of our own greedy and fearful hearts. This is the great and terrible freedom that Machiavelli offers us. It is not the freedom to be good in a world that will crucify you for it. It is the freedom to be effective. It is the freedom that comes not from a naive and self-deceiving idealism, but from a cold, clear-eyed, and ultimately quite liberating realism. It is the freedom that comes from understanding the rules of the game so completely that you are no longer a pawn in it, but can, for the first time, begin to be a player. The door to the prison of our own sentimental and self-defeating morality is not locked. It has been open all along. The only question is whether we will have the immense and terrifying courage to walk through it and to finally enter the real and unforgiving world.